immediately switch over, and my monitor says there's no data going to YouTube. Ah, there we go. And there's Bill.
Where's Bill?
Good morning, Bill.
Morning.
Your curtains suspiciously look like you're still in a hotel.
We are. We're moving today, though. It's moving day again. We have 2 more days in Vegas, 2 more nights in Vegas, and then a couple in Laughlin, and one more in Tucson. Then we're in your territory.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I'm really feel sorry that I had to cancel this meeting. We had partied all weekend, and I woke up yesterday and just my nose won't stop running. My nose is just going and going. It's like a hose. It got worse and worse throughout the day, and I couldn't feel right hosting a meeting in person, not knowing whether I was sick or not. So I'm just at home.
And we're glad you chose that option.
Yeah.
I'm also high on every decongestant that we have in the house. So I don't know how this meeting's going to go. Feel free to pick it up and take charge at any moment, especially if I'm sneezing my head off. Well, this is the San Carlos Computer Club, and it is just the three of us. We meet every Tuesday at 10, and you are here with the diehards. I said three, but I forgot to include myself. I'm the fourth. So there's four of us this morning. Hopefully other people will join us. And I'm hoping you guys brought some topics, because I'm a little light on topics this week. There has been some stuff going on, but I haven't really done a good job of keeping a list of things.
Yeah. So I'm trying to, dear.
Off the top, is there anybody out there with a question or a troubleshooting thing they're trying to solve?
Other than my screen view of this virtual meeting, which is not normal, so I'm going out and I'll be back.
Okay. Maybe she just needs to pin the computer club as her main display. Just pin that chat. I'm wishing I had it at my fingertips. Well, you know, one thing that happened in the news, I don't have an article about it. Have you guys been following Sam Bankman-Fried got 100 years fraud? They just decided it was all fraud.
Didn't do him much good to represent himself, did it?
No, not at all. Now we get to see if that works for Trump.
Well,
it is very interesting that he would end up with so many years. Everybody feels slighted by him. I think he is guilty of fraud. It sounded like it from all the stuff that they've reported. It sounded like he even admitted to it whenever he was in press. I don't think I saw his testimony. But I did see press conferences. He called press conferences and said things when his lawyers told him not to say anything. So he might be a good example of, he was trying to be good-hearted. He was trying to be a sincere mistake. That's what he was trying to present. You got that, right, Judy? That when he was out there doing that stuff, he was trying to present himself. I feel like there's a lot of that in this newer generation where there's a give me forgiveness, give me a trophy, give me a, right? Because I didn't sincerely mean, but the law is the law, and we've always been, ignorance of the law is no excuse. You're supposed to know these things, especially when you're doing this kind of stuff. And so
it's kind of like when your signature on documents. Well, that doesn't really mean anything because I was, my financial advisors were telling me to do this.
Right.
Same thing.
I believe it is. And I think he was really... I believe it. Wow, Paul, I've got to mute you. I'm sorry. I'm bleeding through your speakers. Paul, I've got to mute you. I think he was really banking on this kind of forgive me policy that's very common in this generation. And it was just the other extreme. We have to make an example out of you because we can't allow any more of this kind of stuff to be going on. And I do think he's very aware of what he was doing. And this was just a tactic of his he thought that people would go for. What else is going on in our world? I just did a slideshow presentation without doing much of anything for Yuya's 50th birthday using the Macintosh. And I found some interesting things out as I tried to set up an album. Judy, if you work with photos in the Macintosh photo program, you're able to bring together your photos into one album, title it, organize it.
Yes. Well, I have been. I haven't made an album in a long time.
But
yes.
Did you know you have very little control over the slideshow? The slideshow that comes out of Google or out of Mac Photos is actually predetermined by the order you've arranged your pictures in. That's the only thing. So say you have 1,000 pictures and you just want them to randomly be a slideshow. You have an album of 1,000 pictures. There is no randomness that you can program into that. It doesn't exist. You would think that there would be a checkbox or a button.
Well, no, it's random because I use that as my screensaver, my photos.
That's what I was going to get at. With a bunch of Google searches on this topic, I not only verified what I'm saying is true, but the only workaround anyone's found is to set up the main screensaver to do the slideshow. And so you're using, instead of using the photo application, which includes the slideshow option, you're going to your operating system and you're using a screensaver to present your slideshow, which it doesn't seem very Apple-like. But it was very sophisticated. That slideshow that comes as a screensaver allowed me to do everything I wanted to do with that album. It allowed me to pick a very specific album. The album was a smart album. I don't know if you've used these before, but if you got facial recognition on your pictures, the smart album, you can very quickly say, all photos with Yuya. And all of a sudden there's 5,000 photos in the photo album. And with the smart album, I could do things like all photos with a focal point of 30 millimeters. So I could try and focus on higher quality photos that were more like portrait photos. I could just stick that, and so boom, it's dialed down to 3,000 photos. And so I was able to tailor a presentation of photos that at least got down to a number where I could change. I had a bunch of stuff that was blurry that needed to be deleted anyway, and I had a bunch of stuff that was like sitting cockeyed that needed to be straightened. And so I got it down to a list I thought was reasonable, about 2,000 photos, and then I made those little corrections, and now I have that photo album. What I wasn't able to do with a smart album is I'm not able to organize them. I'm not able to say this one first, this one second. Not that I want to do that in the first place, because I just want it to go random. I want it to be from the first photo to the 5,000 photo to the...
But if you altered the date, I think you could do that.
But you wouldn't want to do that, would you? Because
well,
then
no,
you're changing information about the pictures. It's just not the right solution. But Apple's only solution at that point is you go over to the operating system, you pull up the screensaver, you tailor so you tell the screensaver to go to your photo album, go to the smart album, which is cool, that was there. Very time consuming on an M1 for some reason when you have 100,000 photos for it to get ready to present photos. There's this lag time where it's like looking at the photo database. So this is the screensaver software. Looking at your photo database. There's probably a 30-second, you click, and everything freezes up for a moment. This is on an M1. This is the newer generation processor. This is one of one of the few places I found a slowdown in the new Macintosh
I've
systems.
had to change the length of time that my photos display in screensaver. You know, it used to be like 5 minutes or 8 minutes, but I've had to dial that down because then I can hear the fan going on my MacBook Pro.
Oh
So,
yeah, because you're still using
yeah,
an Intel Mac, right?
yeah.
Yeah, and so it needs a
So,
lot of cooling.
yeah, so I had to actually change that, but that's no big deal.
Well,
So,
well, so my goal is to present nice photos only in random order on a screen, and the screensaver from Macintosh has some set like in a box. You know, pictures or floating or tiled or, and so you pick all that stuff, and you can say random, and you can say okay. But there's no invoke. There isn't like an invoke button. This is the workaround for screens. Like in the photo
right.
album, there's a screensaver button that you invoke the screensaver. Or you, I'm sorry, now I'm getting them mixed up. You invoke the slideshow. When you're
Right.
in Mac Photos and you're looking at the album, there's a button you hit, a metaphoric button that you hit, that starts the slideshow running. Because
So, do you not use your Amazon Prime for your photos?
I do as well.
Well,
But I'm just
maybe
talking
you
about
could do
the way
that,
Mac is doing things right now.
right, but
That's
maybe you could do what you want to do through Amazon.
don't get me wrong. The end of this story is everything works, but
Oh,
the
good.
story is about Mac Photos and their approach to helping you with this problem. That's really what I'm sharing. Is this is the Mac way of thinking about things. You've got this photo program that allows slideshows to happen out of albums, but gives you no real control over how you tailor it. At the same time, Mac users have figured out if I want to do a random slideshow, I can go over to the screensaver that Mac also provides. However, there isn't a one button start for that. So so what I ended up doing was using one of the hot corners. If you guys aren't familiar with this on the Mac, each one of the corners of the screen can be used like a button. And so in the operating system, I set one of the hot corners to invoke the screensaver, which was set up as the slideshow. So I could move the mouse up into the upper right hand corner and have it start. I just thought you'd find it interesting how different philosophy. I mean, it felt to me like Apple was leaving a gap open so a third party could build something to give you the same experience of working on photos and building a screensaver. It felt like they were leaving this little gap there to say there's room for a third party to build their own app. I also feel like that's kind of a philosophy we're seeing in a lot of different areas. I've done a lot of that in Google recently with this company I work for in Phoenix, where it seems like you should have a button solution. You should be able to hit a button and do whatever it is. And it doesn't exist. But the ability to make it exist is just a micro payment away and a couple hours of work from somebody long distance, and now you've got it. Or it already exists and you're a micro payment away from just adding that widget button to whatever you're doing. You just have to get it from the App Store. And it really feels like this is the direction all this has taken. Hi, Cheryl. Good to see you. I like your view.
Well, that's an old view. We're looking at Fremont Street now. Anyways, why didn't you use iMovie?
Because that's a real hassle. That's a huge work hog, right? And what I
Okay.
wasn't doing is I wasn't making a movie. Like for the kids' quinceaneras, I was making a movie. I was making a very specific presentation. And I did use iMovie for parts of that, and I used another piece of software on the PC that I really like. That for the life of me, I can't remember what it's called now. It's
Movie.
VSDC is what I've used, and I really like it. It is when you need that widget that you're reading about. It's in there somewhere. You just got to figure
Yeah.
out how to get it.
So this was just to be running as a slideshow.
That was my
Not-
only goal is is it was Yuya's birthday, and I had a big screen, and I wanted to project just random good photos from her, of her that we've had over the years. And so I went into like Windows Photos has a slideshow. I knew Macintosh had a slideshow in the Photos program. But what I learned was I had very little control over the randomness of the photos in the photo program. And that is by design. They have not provided any way. They've provided very limited interactions from a slideshow in the Photos program on the Macintosh. But what they have is a robust set of features in the screensaver. And so all these Mac users that wanted to do what I wanted to do go over to their screensaver from Mac OS, and they tailor that up using an album of photos from their Photos program. Anyway, I just thought you'd find it interesting, the different philosophies and how software should work. I'm also just filling time because I don't have very many articles, and I'm high on decongestant. So if anybody out there has something that they have a question or need troubleshooting on something, I'm happy to help. I'm glad to see Jim and Chester with us now. Good to see you guys. Have you guys brought any topics to today's meeting? Paul was the first one to show.
Actually, I do have one.
Oh yeah, let's go ahead, Jim.
The ExpressVPN, the password manager keys. I haven't used that yet, and I was just about to go do a search and find out how it's supposed to work. But if anybody there has familiarity with keys and wants to share their experience, might save me some time, I'd appreciate it.
So you're talking about the password manager that ExpressVPN is offering you as part of the service.
That's correct.
I have not used ExpressVPN's password manager, and so one of the what I think you're asking about really is would you recommend it? Is there something better or easier, more secure? Which I don't think we could answer without doing some comparisons between them. I don't use the ExpressVPN password manager, but I do know it comes with your service. And as long as it's rated up there high with ease of use and security, I would go ahead and use it. But you might also already have some password managers you're using that you're not thinking about. Like if you've got a Macintosh or an iPhone, and
I do have several.
So the iCloud password manager is a genuine, viable option that you're probably already using.
Yeah, I've got
And that could be set up to receive passwords in if you had a PC and you wanted to get those.
Could be. I'm not even sure. It's
Is it me or is it you, Jim? I'm missing every other thing you're saying. Is everybody hearing Jim? Because I'm not. Are you? Paul's shaking his head. Jim, I'm sorry.
It could be me. I've been having real problem with connectivity lately.
I'm trying really hard not to talk on top of you, but I'm missing like every other thing you're saying.
Okay, let me talk then. What I said was it could be me. I've been having some trouble with connectivity lately. Phone calls being dropped in mid-sentence, that sort of thing. So that may be happening here.
Is it not to get away
from
your...
Did you understand that?
Yes. Not to get away from your original topic. I mean, your video's coming through really good, so it's got to be an intermittent problem, like up and down.
The video and audio are not synced.
Yeah, it is.
The video and audio are not synced.
Yeah. I wonder if you were to just give up on video, even though it's looking good. Like it's got a great picture, and then it freezes for a moment, and then it's got a great picture, and it's going, and then it'll freeze for a moment. Maybe giving up that bandwidth would compensate for whatever's going on with the audio.
Okay, I just did. Tell me whether that seems to be any better.
Yeah, well, immediately it seems better. Let's see what happens as we go on. The and
Okay,
you're
great.
are you dedicated to this password manager of ExpressVPN, even trying to use it, or would you be more interested in just using something you're already using? I imagine you're already using the iCloud password manager because of your
And maybe
iPhone.
not even realizing it, but yes.
And there are
Okay, yeah,
plugins.
no, I'm not wedded to.
There are plugins for for Apple iCloud. Gosh, what do they even call it? I'm going to do a quick Google search here. Password manager. I've never set it up because I use one called Bitwarden, which I moved to after the last pass issue. Because that was considered very vetted what it was giving you. But Apple, if you're in the Apple ecosystem, that's been considered vetted for a long time. And I'm bringing up their article on these passwords right now. Set up iCloud keychain. So iCloud keychain is definitely the kind of language you want to use when you're looking at this stuff. Because that's the Apple phrasing for it, is keychain. And this is all...
Okay.
Everything I'm looking at my screen right now is all Yes, it's all Macintosh and iPhone, iOS, like your iPhone, your iPad. This is possible on Windows too. I know you have a Windows computer in your life, and they do have like a
Yes.
plugin for your Windows computer. Manage your passwords in iCloud password app. Oh, is it a standalone? I've been actually getting convoluted in this topic myself recently because I'm aware of like to go on with this discussion. Chrome's password manager has become much more secure just by requiring authentication before you get any of the passwords. So you could actually just let Chrome maintain your password list, and it would do the same thing for you. Choose start. Do I even have?
Okay.
If you use Chrome.
So Chrome.
If you use Chrome.
Yeah, if you use Chrome. But because it's Chrome, you know what that means is there's also the Windows Edge, the Windows password manager that's built in. There's also Opera has their own password manager because it's all based on the Chromium engine. And what was the problem with using... Chrome was not a recommendation for managing your passwords for a long time. And the main reason it was... I mean, a lot of people still did it. The main reason was because it had no authentication associated to pulling up the password. They've added that. It started on the Mac, and now it's in Windows as well, where anytime that you're trying to use... Or look at I'm sorry, that's what it is. Look at a password. If you go and try and look at somebody's password, you have to authenticate yourself with your Windows login. And so it's become quite a bit more secure. It was always encrypted, but it couldn't be decrypted to be viewed. One of the things that I could do in the past with Chrome, because people would use it to store their passwords, is people would forget their passwords all the time. And I could go into Chrome and I could get a list of all their passwords as long as I had access to their computer. That was considered secure enough. So somebody could come, you could leave your laptop sitting on the counter at a cafe internet and go to the bathroom, and somebody could come right behind you on your web browser and pull up all your passwords and snap a photo of them if they wanted to, or download it into a text file. And so that was the big change that they've made that makes it much more secure, is they have adopted a trust no one attitude towards their password management, which means even you sitting in front of your computer have to authenticate yourself before you're using it. So Chrome... Oh, go ahead, Chester. I'm sorry.
I said, in my opinion, I have the safest password management system, which is a solid state external hard drive.
Yeah. Yeah, well, a lot of people are functioning like that. They also have systems where they have virtual keys and a USB drive. You know, that I just had my credentials updated with SAT here in Wymus so that I can collect taxes for the government. What fun. And they needed to give me a new password because everything's done online, and along with the password they give me a certificate on a USB drive, and that certificate is quite literally, if you guys aren't familiar with an encryption certificate, is just a text file. It's just a text file with a great big number in it, but that number is used in combination with your password to combine into the authentication when you're signing into the system. So when you go to their website to sign in, you have to have both. You have to have that password and you have to have that encrypted number, and they have to match together to let you into the system. So there are systems out there where you can have an encryption key on a USB and you've elected to use that key every time. Chester, your system, the only flaw I see in your system is if your drive fails.
No, it's a solid state.
Right. But, like, you could drop it in the ocean. You could drop it off a building. You could get run over by a truck. I mean, that's what I'm saying is your point of failure is all on your own onus. But by keeping it private like you do, that means it's not out there in the wild. See, security is always a layered approach of things so that you've got everything covered. And it's also always a compromise of how secure can you be and still be convenient. And these password managers are trying their best to make that compromise. I use another one called Passkey. My friend Richard turned me on to it. It's not Passkey. It's called KeePass, KeePass. And the reason he likes it is because it is offline first. It is a standalone password manager that runs on different platforms. I've got it running on Windows, and you have a master password to get into it. If you ever used RoboForm in the old days, you remember we used to use RoboForm as a password manager. It's that kind of idea that it stands alone on your device. You have one master password. It opens up all the other passwords to you. There is a plug-in to autofill passwords on your browser, or you can copy and paste that stuff from that manager. But it has the same kind of benefit as Chester's doing. It sits local with you. It's not out there in the wild. There's nothing to synchronize with. You don't need internet to use it. So I think when you use a password manager, you're also, what features are you really interested in? One of the things that LastPass did before they blew up was to generate revenue. They made all our free accounts connected to only one platform. I don't know if you guys remember, we talked about this a little bit in club, but LastPass went to this other model. This is before the disclosure, before all the hacking that went on. They were looking to generate more revenue, and so we used to be able to access our passwords from our phone and our desktop. And one of the changes they made is if you're not going to pay, the free account can only be for the desktop or only be for your phone. And that's a feature set that you need to think about. I remember choosing the desktop at the time, going, I use this all the time on the desktop. And a month or two down the line, I really made the wrong decision, because the one place I never have easy access to my passwords is my phone. When I'm sitting in front of my desktop, I've got all my passwords available in some form or another, because I'm at my desk. I got the little black book on the desktop. I got the Post-it note on my monitor, not to mention all the passwords I've saved in various little notes here or there. And when I say I'm using an analogy of I'm using the I as I'm not talking about me personally. I'm just talking about me as a user. That's what happens is you sit down at your desk and you have all those passwords ferreted away somewhere where you don't when you're standing in line at Target or at Lay's on your phone. You don't have all those post-it notes and the black book with you. And so I really felt like I made a mistake. These are features that you keep in mind when you're doing a password manager. Security, of course, number one. Convenience, another one. A multi-platform is another one. And if you go with Apple and iCloud, it's a no-brainer if you've got all Apple stuff because it just works across the entire platform. And to expand it, then they've added this other stuff I was just talking about that I have no experience with, which I should probably go and get some experience with, where you're using the Apple iCloud password manager on your Windows computers and your Android phones.
And also on Apple, you can go to settings, passwords, type in your code for whatever device you're on, and then all your passwords are available.
And that's exactly what we're talking about, Judy. That is the
Exactly.
password manager. That's
Yes, it
available
is.
for
And it
iCloud.
works. It works if you've got Apple devices, it works on any device. You just have to know what each individual device password is.
Yeah, the device password. That's right.
Yes.
And that is again what I'm talking about with this additional authentication. Chrome was not doing that. Apple was doing it when you would install Chrome. Apple would go, no, you're not. You're not going to look at that password list unless you're allowed to use this computer. And Apple was really the one that implemented that. And then I think it's Chrome because with upgraded versions of Chrome, you can't get at, well, maybe it was a Windows update, but now you have to put in your Windows computer to see that list of passwords on Chrome. Whereas before I didn't have to. Before I could just say get into your Chrome browser and let's look at your profile and boom, there's all your passwords. We can even export them all to a text file. And Chrome is changing. You can still export them to a text file. I don't consider that part to be a security issue. It's the part where you didn't need a password to export them to a text file. You should always need a password to work with passwords, and that's what they fixed. And in the iPhone experience or the iPad experience, when you approach a password field, the keyboard on your device changes, and it offers you the password manager to fill out that field. And what's interesting is that if you're going to a website in a web browser, and one of your browsers has, or I say one, but I know for certain it's Chrome. I think I've seen it in other browsers as well. If you've been to that website and you have a password in Chrome, it will bring up a link to the Chrome password manager, just like it's bringing up a link to the iCloud password manager. You'll see it right there on your keyboard as an option on your device. I don't know, Judy, or anybody using an iPhone, when you go to a website and you're asked for a password, or even an app that asks for a password, I'm sure you've had this experience where right above the keyboard, you'll see a little key pop up in the upper right of the keyboard, and that is the system telling you you can go to the password manager and get this password.
I've never noticed that.
Well, in that same move, you can
No.
fill out the password. That'll take you to the password manager, and if you don't have a password there, again, I'm really high on decongestant, so and I didn't know we were going to talk about this. So let me back up a little bit. When you see only the key, that means you don't have a password, but you can get to it and you can make a password at that point.
Mm.
If it
By
has a,
clicking that little key, you're saying.
that's right. That's right.
Okay,
Now
that's good to know.
in a perfect world, if everything's working correctly, you don't click the key and you just fill out the password. The password manager is supposed to ask you if you want to save it. But that doesn't always work. It depends on which browser you're using and what website you're on.
Mm-hmm.
I can't seem to find a rhyme or reason to it. But it just doesn't always ask you to save your password
Right,
in the password manager. If you're in a
exactly.
Chrome browser,
That's
it tends to ask you always if you want to save it in Chrome. But it doesn't necessarily always ask you if you want to save it in the iCloud password manager.
right.
By clicking that key, you get the option of putting together the password ahead of time. So you don't see it. It's not offering you a password. That's what, if the password is in, my tongue is going to be so tired of saying password. If the password is in the iCloud password manager, your username will appear above the keyboard. And that's an option. That's one more button you can hit and it'll fill that out for you. But if it doesn't appear, then the key will still be there.
It will only appear if you say save my login
Exactly.
information.
Exactly.
Otherwise, it does not appear.
That's right. But the key will appear. And when you click on the key, you can go into the password manager and you can fill out that information.
I will look for that key the next time I come up against that.
Now, there's another experience I've had with this where I do have Google accounts installed in my phone for Computer Club and Bed and Breakfast and my own personal account. And each one of those has a variety of passwords I allow Chrome to hang on to. And so when I have all those in my iPhone, I get prompted to you, what password manager do I want the password from? Should I get it from Chrome under the Bed and Breakfast, Chrome under my personal? Those things will list in the keyboard as button options to provide a password for this site. The key being that that site has to have a password in one of those password managers. Jim, you didn't know this was going to be such a convoluted topic, did you?
When you're
No,
out
but I
of,
tell you what, I'm absolutely fascinated.
when you're out of topics, I have 3 items.
Oh, good, good. I may need it regardless of what I could. I got plenty of information, but I don't know if my throat can handle much more. So in your question, Jim, I think what you're really interested in is the convenience of having your passwords at your fingertips under one master password. And I think in your situation, you should seriously look at configuring the iCloud password manager because you're already using it without knowing it. It's the thing that's storing all your apps passwords. It's the thing that when you go to a website on your iPad, it already knows who you are. It's because it's already been put in that password manager. And then it's just a few other steps to share and synchronize that, being one of the other features in this feature set that you're looking for. Some people don't like the idea of synchronizing that list of passwords to the cloud. Chrome does that. There's no way around it. It is absolutely the way it works. iCloud, you can choose whether it's going to stay on that device and be that device's keychain, or if you're going to sync it with iCloud and make it available to all your other devices. You get to choose that when you use the Apple iCloud. So it's kind of one or the other. I mean, if you're one of those people that doesn't want to see it out there in a cloud space, then you can still use iCloud. You can still use the keychain without the iCloud sync portion of it. And then there are people that want to be completely detached, like the KeePass, KeePass, that I have used as well. And that's very close to Chester's. Chester, your situation with a solid state drive, do you put a master password on the solid state drive? Like if I sat at your desk, would I be able to get into that drive, or would I need another password?
No, you'd need the drive itself.
Right.
Um,
So say you have the drive connected, would I be able to get into it, or would I have to
yes,
put another password?
No, you could get into it.
Okay.
And let me also mention that I make a copy of a printed copy of those passwords, 2 pages long. And if you wanted to have that in your phone, you could put a JPEG photo of parts of that photograph of your passwords in your iPhone.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's some real security compromises you're making when you do that, but again, none of us work for the CIA. So I don't want to make that sound like a bad idea, but there are definitely more secure ways of doing that. And that's the reason all these things exist. If you are working for a corporation that was concerned about or a government, if you're working for a government, you always have to be concerned that somebody would be trying to infiltrate your phone. And things like pictures of password lists are very easily compromised, or Excel spreadsheets of, or even text files of passwords are very easily compromised. When
I
you're the
don't do that. I was just offering that.
Yeah, sure, I understand, and I understand. I mean, I would be wrong to say I haven't found myself in the same position doing things like that. But I think it's the nuances of security around passwords is the reason that an area like password management exists. Yeah, Judy.
So I've been having an issue with my online banking.
Okay.
If they have implemented a new, more secure system, supposedly, however, on Safari, I cannot get into it because it kicks me over to it's a separate site that's checking it out, and it just check, and it never clicks back over so I can log on. So I send a message to my banking institution and tell them this isn't working. This has been since the 19th of October. Firefox, it works fine.
So it works fine on
So,
Firefox.
but Safari, no. But they don't believe me. So they go through their checklist. When was the last time you updated? When was blah, 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 the whole checklist. And I say, you know, it's something with your interface with Safari. You need to look at that. Our tech team is looking at all of this. So, but this has been since the 19th of October. So we're going on a month, almost a month.
I don't know if there's any way we can help you with that.
Well, we can't, but it's a problem with this ultra high security issues that they're going to. They don't test it enough before.
Well,
Yep.
you know what? The Even like Microsoft, Google, Apple have this consortium on password management and going passwordless. And their move is by next year that would be the default offer. When you approach a service, they would encourage you to go without a password altogether. And quite honestly, it confuses the hell out of me. I really don't understand how it works. I've looked into it. It has to do with having a device, but all I can come up with is what happens if there's a problem with the device? How easily are you going to be able to get around it? Because they quite
It's
literally do not want you to have to worry about a password, which is,
it's like that little thing that Cbanco gives you
well, it's a
that you get a code, but I lost my little code generator. So
yeah.
then I was really
You have to get another one, and you have to go.
no, they've now set it up that I can do it from my phone without I had it set up now
Oh,
that I don't actually need the token to generate a code.
so I've also seen a lot of authentication happening across phones like that. I signed up for Pago. No, yeah, what is it? Pago. Mercado Pago. This is a spin-off of Mercado Libre It's kind of like the best I could describe it would be the eBay to PayPal, Mercado Libre to Mercado Pago. It's a system like PayPal in Latin America that has spawned out of Mercado Libre, spun off to do its own thing. And I had no interest in it until my daughter bought a bird cage that was immediately canceled. And so there's like 1,400 pesos in the ether. And what they would do in the past on Mercado Libre is they would put it on this Mercado Libre credit. And it would sit there and I could use it for other purchases. What they did this time, because they're pushing this Mercado Libre, they're like, this is Mercado Pago, this is the only way we're doing this now. And they put it in this account. And then I had to go get that account. I had to verify who I am with a picture of my passport. And we just go through all this authentication stuff to have this thing available and have that money available to me. And again, I'm on decongestants. I don't even remember what took me down this path of thought. Why am I talking about this? Where am I with this? I'm just filling air at the moment.
Authentication, second tier.
Second tier authentication.
Whatever that's called.
Yeah. So they did all that for me on my phone. They took my phone number. They saw my Mercado Libre account. And I did not have to set up it's a whole different service. I did not have to set up a password with it. It just all went through the phone. I've seen other apps work like this as well, where your authentication is being taken care of through a combination of what's happening across your data plan and what's happening with your cell service. Your phone number is being used as your persona. And I think that must integrate into this plan of not having passwords. I still don't get it. I need to spend some real time understanding because Microsoft has this other thing, Jim, we hadn't even mentioned this. Microsoft has this thing called the Authenticator. And the Authenticator is a password manager with two-factor authentication. Right. And you can use it with all these services that support the Authenticator, of course, all Microsoft services. But the Authenticator has its own password. It receives two-factor authentication notices. You go to sign in somewhere and it pings the Authenticator. You authenticate the Authenticator authenticates your service. You never actually did anything with a password. I don't know. So you have a lot of options for password management. I think the iCloud.
Okay, let me ask you a question then.
Sure.
Okay, just that. Since I use my phone and our Macs the most, I would be inclined to just bone up on the iCloud. The iCloud password manager. And if I chose the iCloud option, save option, then I would be able to use that on my PC as well. Is that correct?
You would choose that option to use it anywhere else. If you don't choose that option, then you have a separate one on your Macintosh, a separate one on your iPad, a separate one on your... And I personally, I couldn't function like that. The whole point of the password manager is to add more convenience and security at the same time. So I'm taking a little bit of security away by putting it out there in the cloud. I'm trusting Apple to know what they're doing and not allow that encrypted block of passwords to get loose like LastPass did, because that is quite literally what LastPass did, is that they allowed their security to be breached and allowed big just balls of these secure, what do they call them, blobs. They're blobs of passwords. They allowed them to get out into the wild. They are encrypted, so they shouldn't be easily cracked, but now they're available for every cracking solution. I'm adding all this right in the middle of this because that's the kind of decision you're making. I'm not trying to invoke fear, But
Right.
it's important to understand the scope of the security decision you're making. When you put it out there in the cloud, you are doing it for convenience, and you're taking it. You're relying on that service provider to encrypt encrypt fully, as secure as they possibly can, and then to have services that can't be gotten into, so that even if they did get that encrypted, even if they did a bad job of, I'm saying this backwards, but even if they did a bad job of encrypting that blob, their first priority is keeping people out of it. You want a service that's doing both. They're encrypting to its highest possibility, and then they're blocking people from having access to it to the highest extent they can. And I trust Apple to be that company. But
Yeah.
but I also I openly trusted LastPass for years. I even pushed it in our computer club if you were looking for this kind of convenience. And when they got sold to I mean, they basically got sold to an investment firm, investment banking. They focused on the way it looked and how it felt, and they forgot about the security aspect of things to the extent that they were compromised. And then they focused on PR, which meant that we were compromised for over 6 months before we knew we were compromised. So they really just ran roughshod over their customers. And they can fix all those things, but I wouldn't trust them as an organization again. And I do trust Apple. Even if Apple does get compromised, I do trust Apple to be looking out for my best interest, because I'm their customer, and they've earned that kind of trust.
Right.
Well, I switched to 1Password, and I'm hoping that it's good.
It's highly recommended. I remember our conversation in the past, Paul, and I went out when I was frustrated with LastPass, and OnePass and Bitwarden are highly recommended by security experts out there, specifically if you want this syncing. If that's and let me say, Jim, it's those are the three. Those are the three highly recommended. Is the iCloud Password Manager, Bitwarden, and OnePass. And when you go to compare these, those are the three that percolate up to the top of the list all the time.
Cool.
Well,
Cool.
when passwords became so popular for everything, I had a file in WordPerfect and I typed it all in, and then I saved the file and made it password secure. Now, I don't know if that was worth a damn, but that's what I did.
Yeah, well, these these file passwords have their own limitations on security, and so what would be important is to know what length password. Like, is it 256? There's 256 right now. AES is what I think is considered the highest standard password encryption right now. That no reasonable computer could crack that password in a reasonable amount of time. It's got some factor of like 10 years or something like that to run on a particular password. And all you have to do is implement that up higher, like 512. Then it's impossible by all the technology we have right now. This is the fascinating thing of encryption in math, is that it's really easy to make it harder to do the math on. It's really easy to use it as harder math. It's very hard to pull out the passwords after the math has been done. So it's really easy to make it unreadable, and it's really hard to make it readable. So if you're going to encrypt a file and use that file as your black book, you just want to be clear that was a good encryption for that. And it wouldn't have to be like, if it's a Word document, you're using a Microsoft password. Oh, hey guys, our call is about to end. I'm going to bring up the other meeting right this moment. Hi, Jim. You got here just in time to disconnect. We'll see you in the next meeting. I hope you got the code. Bye bye. It's gone. Oh, that's the wrong meat. This is the right meat. All right, we're all here. Chester, you've had your hand up for a long time now. What would you like to add?
Well, I had three items on my mind. One is a current series that we're enjoying, and it's called The Gilded Age. It takes place in the upper class of New York City in 1882. It's quite interesting.
Stick that on our recommendations list. There is some echoing feedback coming back. I think it might be Jim. You've got two windows open right now. If you could lower the volume on one of them, probably the one that you're using as a microphone. Oh, there you go. I think that might have. I think the one you're using as a microphone, you want to have the volume on that. And the other one, you just want to have the volume all the way down. The one you have muted, you want to have all the way down.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Something's going haywire. I hope it's not me.
It is you. I'm muting you right now. What is happening is you've got two different camera windows open. So maybe it's a tab. Maybe you've opened up this meet twice. I see Caroline and Jim together twice. Oh, and here's Judy. Judy's still not in. I'm sorry, Judy. There's Judy. So Chester, before we go on to your two other options, your two other things you've brought, I just want to make sure. I don't even see Cunningham here anymore. There he is. I just want to make sure that we don't have any last things. We can close out on this topic. We can always go back to password managers. It's a constant conversation. We can do more with password lists, which is really a direction we're going with all this. Jim, was there any other comments you'd like to make before we go on?
No, I think that tells me where I need to go.
It's an overwhelming diarrhea flow of information.
I thank you for that.
You're welcome. What are the other things you wanted to bring up?
You talking to me?
I am. You said you had three items. One was a recommendation, which I wrote on our recommendations list for a show called The Gilded Age.
Yes, that's correct. Takes place in 1882.
Is it on
The other
Netflix?
is, let's see.
Oh, that's okay.
I'm picking that up on, I believe, YouTube or HBO.
Oh, okay. Max would be a streaming service you might get it.
Yeah. Okay, the other thing that I wanted to mention was last week you discussed a sequence of clicks to get a deep examination of viruses.
Oh, yeah, to scan an entire system.
Yes. And I didn't write down those sequences.
Well, let's see.
That's Windows.
Yeah. Let me
Windows 11.
Let me bring up Windows 11. Damn it, that's right. I don't have a Windows 11 in front of me.
Okay, I'll bring it next week.
But what you
the other thing I wanted to comment on.
Wait, Chester, what you want to do though, as a concept, is you want to get into the security center.
I did, but I couldn't find what you were the thing that you mentioned.
So in the security center, you're going to find an option to scan, and then it's going to have some links underneath it that are about doing customized scans. And I don't remember if it looks the same, but on Windows 10, I can show you what it looks like. And if you're
No,
not looking for it, you might miss it. The what is it I'm trying to do? Here we go. So this is the Windows security system in 10. Viruses and threat protection. And then you see under this button for quick scan, under it has scan options. That's a link you can click on. I hope you can see my screen. So this is the kind of thing you're looking for in Windows 11. And when you open that up, then you get to choose what kind of scan you want to do. A full scan, everything on the computer. A custom scan, like say you wanted to scan just an external hard drive, that's how you would do that. And this offline scan you would probably run because you thought that you had a rootkit virus or something like that. And so you needed to reboot the computer and let it scan for viruses without being connected to the internet, without having access to your... Basically, it would have access to just your Windows system. I hope that helps.
I'll give it a try.
Yeah.
The third item has to do with some comments on slideshows that you mentioned earlier.
Oh, yeah.
That's slideshows and videos and combinations of those two have been a hobby of mine for the last 20 years. And I've probably produced more than 20 of them, some of them lasting at least an hour. And they integrate voiceover, they also integrate music, and sometimes they are words within a JPEG slide that you're able to accomplish. And the program that I use for that is Cyberlink, if any of you really want to get into this. And it's a wonderful program. I don't use it anymore, but it's still there and it's still a wonderful program. And I combine that with slides that I prepare from Photoshop. And that I just wanted to make those comments.
Yeah, I remember Cyberlink. I have not used it forever. It used to be one of those ones that would come along with a device, like you would buy a DVD burner and they would give you a copy of it. Or you would buy an HP computer, multimedia HP computer, and they would give you a copy of it.
Well, what I've always done is bought the program.
Well, and that was their model. They'd give you this free version that would have certain things, and then you get into whatever the feature it was you needed that wasn't there. What would be interesting is to see if they've switched to a subscription model, which is the vein of my software that I enjoy using. It's not expensive, but I don't own it. I don't have it fully ready to go like an appliance. It has got a basic free version, and I pay an annual subscription fee, and then it's available to me. When it expires, I go back to the free version, which is handicapped. Cyberlink used to be one where you would get a free version and you would download, and that appliance would be yours. You owned it, and as long as you had a computer that would run it, there was no other fee to pay. It looks like a buy option. What happens if we buy this now? Lifetime license versus subscription. So they're moving into the subscription model as well.
Well, I find that my last download program for both Photoshop and Cyberlink has been adequate for anything I need. So I do not need their subscriptions.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that are feeling that way. I know my friend Richard still runs an old Photoshop 6 to do all his picture editing, and he uses a virtual Windows drive, a virtual Windows machine that will run it on Linux because he uses Linux. And it's the only piece of Windows software I think he still uses. And it works just fine for every change, every blemish fix he wants to make.
That's the one I'm using, 6.
Yeah, it seems I think 6 was the last one before they switched to the subscription model. And when we talk about these subscription models, what I've become recently aware of, I mean, it's something that I've talked about, but I didn't realize there was a formal movement of offline first. I heard an interview with the CEO of this, or whatever you'd call him, offline first.
You can buy the disc on eBay, but they're not cheap. I'm talking about Photoshop.
What's interesting about this movement is this is tech people pushing back at the idea that you need to be connected for something to work. Offline first is kind of goes hand in hand. You've heard me talk about passive smart. Right? My passive smart pitch is that every appliance you own should just work. If it's smart, that's secondary. So you shouldn't have to buy a new fridge because the computer broke. The fridge should just be a fridge. Maybe it can save you money. Maybe it can have cycles to be more efficient, or tell you your grocery list, or order groceries from the internet. All that's fine, but when that computer's out of date, you should be able to replace it. If it fries, you should still be able to make cold orange juice. You should not be tossing away an appliance because a computer went bad in it. And to me, I call that passive smart. I think smart should be secondary to these appliances. This offline first follows the same philosophy. The idea is that when you build an application for a platform, it should be fully available on that platform regardless of whether it's got a connection to a network or not. Whatever it may do, it should do, regardless of whether it can be connected. If you go out in the middle of the desert with no cell service, you should still be able to use that application. And this is a movement that's starting to get churned up right now. Be interesting to follow. There's a website, kind of the spearhead of this, called Offline First. And they explain the reasoning, which is very sound, and they encourage development in this manner. It's something that was difficult to sell. I'm putting this website on our page here. It was a hard sell 10 years, well, maybe even 5 years ago, simply because of internet speeds and access. It just, I'm sorry, I've got that in reverse. It was a hard sell because we didn't have that processing power in our pocket. With speed and access, we were able to go somewhere else for that processing power. And so all these server-side processes happened, and all they were doing was spitting you the results. But the moment you lost access to a network, you lost access to those results. Now they're spinning up devices with such incredible power. They're going to be doing artificial intelligence in your phone, whereas in the past it was all done in data servers. They're going to be doing it right in your phone. Apple already does it to some extent. There is no reason that these massive applications cannot be designed to be offline first, so that it works in your device. That's the foremost priority. And then getting connected to the internet is secondary. So if you're interested, I put a link to that website on our document for today's meeting. I can tell it's a disheveled organization because I did have 2 topics in here that we didn't get to at all, and a bunch of stuff I didn't even know we were going to talk about today. I do think that I need to bring this meeting to a close. If there's any other questions or topics, let's get them out right now and work our way out of this meeting until next week. Does anybody have...
I have a quick recommendation.
Sure, Paul, go ahead.
So I went to my favorite OXXO to get coffee, and they were out of coffee in the thermos, the Americano. So I got the Andrade coffee, and they said it was Crema Irlandia, Irish cream coffee. Sure,
Okay.
I'll try that. And it's very good.
All right.
Recommendation. Andrade Crema Irlandia.
Where do you get that?
Oxo.
At Oxo. All right. I'm going to put Oxo Andre Crema Irlandia as one of our recommendations
Okay.
on our document.
It's like a 7-Eleven. There's lots of them in town.
Sure, there sure is. Jim, did you show up with any questions or anything you'd like to?
Well, I'd like to apologize for my tardiness. I understand I must be on a different time zone or something than you guys.
That's what's happened. You must be in
Yeah.
daylight savings, or the absence of it.
No longer.
Yeah, the absence of daylight
No longer.
savings now.
So you're going 9 or 10 o'clock Mountain Time.
10 o'clock Arizona Sonoran time. We don't recognize daylight savings.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess I'm going to have to be here at 9 o'clock. In the
Sorry,
future.
Jim.
That's all right. It's all right. I'll try to wake up early.
Well, good, and we will expect to see you next week. I didn't get a chance to say, but I'll send it out as well in the next week announcement. I am going to be in Phoenix working next week, so next week is also a virtual meeting. Paul, you don't need to go to Tequilas. You can stay right there, because I'm going to have to do it online. But I think that's it until next.
I think you're sadly mistaken. We're going to be in San Carlos. We're going to be at Tequilas.
All right.
Paul, come to Tequilas. We'll see you there.
All right. So they'll be doing the virtual meeting from Tequilas.
All right.
All right, guys. Well,
Everyone. Bye-bye.
tech on. Till next Tuesday. Adios, Paul. That was it. We did it again, even though I'm kind of sick. We had to do it as a virtual meeting. Couldn't do the in-person meeting. That's always too bad. It's a lot of equipment to set up, though. Anyway, I got nothing else to add. It's been an interesting week. Looking forward to another interesting week. We'll get back to you next Tuesday here at the San Carlos Computer Club. I guess I should say a majority of my work is remote work. If you're interested, if you're looking for solutions to computer issues out there on the internet, get a hold of me. I'm Scott Stimson. I'm Scott at internationalcs.net. And if you like what we do here, check out our YouTube channel. Check out our blog, scclub.org. And, oh gosh, I guess we're on Tumblr now because Twitter is X and they don't allow us to use their API anymore. So I guess we don't post on Twitter anymore. So that's what it is. That's what it all is. Anyway, you guys have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Adios.